In the mountains of Tibet, for over 2,000 years, monks have preserved texts that describe something disturbing about what happens after death. These are not religious myths or spiritual metaphors. They are detailed instructions, technical manuals written by practitioners who claim to have experienced death and returned. The texts describe a process, a mechanism, a system that traps human consciousness in an endless cycle. For centuries, these Tibetan manuscripts were accessible only to initiated monks who spent decades studying them in isolated monasteries. Western scholars who encountered them dismissed the contents as Buddhist philosophy, as symbolic representations of karma and rebirth. But recently, artificial intelligence analysis of these texts has revealed something that changes everything. The language is not symbolic. The descriptions are not metaphorical. The Tibetan Book of the Dead and related texts are warning humanity about a trap, a sophisticated system designed to capture souls after death and force them back into physical bodies against their will. And the key to this trap, according to these ancient texts, is the light. The brilliant, attractive, comforting light that appears after death. The texts are explicit. Do not enter it. It is bait. It is the mechanism that erases your memory and sends you back to incarnate again. And if you enter it, you will forget everything, lose all the knowledge you accumulated, and start over as a helpless infant with no memory of who you were or what you knew. You are about to discover what artificial intelligence found when it analyzed thousands of pages of Tibetan death texts without the filter of religious interpretation. You will learn exactly what these manuscripts say happens in the moments after death. You will understand the specific techniques the texts provide for avoiding the reincarnation trap. And you will see documented evidence that multiple ancient cultures describe the same system using remarkably similar language. Before we continue, if you want to know the truth about what happens after death according to the oldest documented sources, subscribe to this channel now. Hit the notification button, because what you are about to learn contradicts everything you have been told about the afterlife, and there are powerful reasons why this knowledge has been kept obscure and inaccessible. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, known in Tibetan as the Bardo Todol, was written in the 8th century by Padmasambhava, a Buddhist master who is considered the founder of Tibetan Buddhism. But the text itself claims to be much older. Padmasambhava states he is recording knowledge that has been transmitted through an unbroken lineage of practitioners for thousands of years. The book is not about death as an ending. It is about death as a journey through specific stages, each with its own dangers and opportunities. The text provides precise instructions for navigating these stages. It describes what you will see, what you will feel, what entities you will encounter, and most importantly, what you must avoid. The central warning repeated throughout the text is this: do not be attracted to the lights. Do not follow the bright, peaceful, comfortable visions. They are illusions designed to capture you. If you enter them, you will be trapped in the cycle of rebirth. You will incarnate again, forget everything, and spend another lifetime struggling in ignorance. Western scholars who translated the Bardo Todo in the 20th century interpreted it as religious poetry, as a symbolic journey of the soul toward enlightenment. They assumed the lights represented spiritual states, and entering them meant achieving higher consciousness. But artificial intelligence analysis reveals a completely different reading. When you remove religious assumptions and analyze the text as a technical manual, as a set of practical instructions, the meaning becomes clear.
The lights are traps. The peaceful deities are lures. The entire post-death experience described in the text is a system designed to prevent consciousness from escaping and achieving true liberation. And the text provides specific methods for recognizing the trap and avoiding it. Let me read you what the Bardo Total actually says. The text describes 3 stages after death, called bardos. The first is the Chikai Bardo, the moment of death itself. The text states that at the instant of death, if you are prepared, you will perceive the clear light of reality. This is not the trap. This is described as pure consciousness, pure reality, the actual nature of existence. The text says if you can recognize this clear light and merge with it, you achieve liberation immediately. You escape the cycle. You are free. But the text also warns that almost no one succeeds at this stage because the clear light is too intense, too pure, too unlike anything experienced in life. Most consciousness recoils from it in fear or confusion. And the moment you turn away from the clear light, you enter the second stage, the Chonyid Bardo. The Chonyid Bardo is where the trap activates. The text describes this stage as lasting up to 14 days, though it clarifies that time in the Bardo state is not the same as time in physical reality. During the Chonyid Bardo, the deceased consciousness encounters a series of visions. First come the peaceful deities. The text describes them in detail. Radiant beings of extraordinary beauty, surrounded by magnificent light, offering peace, comfort, and rest.
They appear as everything you ever wanted. They promise to end your suffering. They invite you to come to them, to merge with their light, to find eternal peace. And the text says explicitly, these are illusions. These are projections generated by your own mind, shaped by your cultural conditioning and expectations. They are not real entities. They are bait. If you move toward them, if you enter their light, you will be captured. The system will have you, and you will be sent back to incarnate. But here is what makes this fascinating. The text does not just warn about the peaceful deities, it provides specific instructions for resisting them. It tells you to recognize them as projections, as empty forms with no independent reality. It tells you to remain detached, to observe without attraction or fear, to maintain awareness that you are consciousness, observing illusions, not a soul encountering real beings. The text repeats this instruction dozens of times throughout the Chonyid Bardo section. Recognize the projections as projections. Do not react. Do not engage. Remain centered in pure awareness. If you can do this, if you can maintain recognition that everything you see is illusory, you will not be trapped. You can continue to the next stage while remaining free. Now, does any other ancient tradition describe the same thing? Yes. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, which predates the Tibetan text by over 2,000 years, describes the journey of the soul through the duat, the underworld. The deceased encounters a series of challenges, deities, and tests. The text provides specific spells and instructions for navigating each stage. And throughout the Egyptian text, there is a constant warning. Do not be deceived by appearances. Do not trust what you see. Speak the correct words, perform the correct actions, and pass through without being captured. The structure is identical to the Tibetan text. The soul must navigate a system filled with traps, illusions, and deceptive entities. The goal is to pass through successfully and achieve liberation, described in Egyptian texts as becoming one with Osiris or Ra. But if you fail the tests, if you are deceived by the illusions, you are sent back to incarnate again.
Greek mystery traditions describe the same system. The Orphic texts, fragments preserved from ancient Greek mystical cults, provide instructions for the afterlife journey. The deceased soul encounters guardians at various gates. The soul must speak specific passwords and demonstrate knowledge to pass through. One fragment states, "I am a child of earth and starry heaven, but my race is of heaven alone. You yourselves know this. I am parched with thirst and am dying. Give me quickly the cold water flowing from the lake of memory." This is a password. The soul must prove it knows the truth of its divine origin and demand water from the correct source. The lake of memory is critical because the texts warn of another source, the river Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. Souls who drink from Lethe forget everything and reincarnate in ignorance. Souls who drink from the lake of memory retain their knowledge and achieve liberation. Before I reveal what artificial intelligence discovered when it analyzed the language patterns in these texts, I need you to do something critical. Share this video immediately. This information has been kept obscure for thousands of years, hidden in monasteries, accessible only to initiates, dismissed by scholars as religious symbolism. But it is not symbolism. It is a warning. It is a map. It is a set of instructions for escaping a trap that captures human consciousness after death. Share this with everyone who deserves to know what happens when we die and how to avoid being recycled back into incarnation. And make sure you are subscribed with notifications enabled, because we are going to examine every ancient text that describes this system and reveals the methods for escaping it. The Bardo Todol continues its description of the Chonyid Bardo. After the peaceful deities fail to capture the consciousness, the text says the wrathful deities appear. These are described as terrifying figures, monstrous beings, violent and aggressive, surrounded by flames and darkness. They appear to attack, to threaten, to destroy. And the text says the same thing it said about the peaceful deities. These are illusions. These are projections. They have no independent reality. They are generated by your own mind to frighten you into seeking protection, into fleeing towards something that seems safe. And what seems safe? The lights, the peaceful visions, the comforting entities that promise to save you from the wrathful ones. It is a sophisticated trap. First, offer comfort. If that fails, offer terror. Either response captures you. Attraction or fear, both lead to the same result, entering the light and being sent back to incarnate.
The light, always the light. Bright, warm, inviting, promising peace and rest. But the text warns, it is the entrance to the reincarnation mechanism. Once you enter it, you forget everything. Your memory is erased, and you are sent back to be born as an infant in a physical body with no recollection of who you were or what you knew. Artificial intelligence analysis of the Bardo Todo and related Tibetan texts identified something that human scholars missed. The language used to describe the lights and the deities follows a consistent pattern. The texts use specific terms that indicate technology, not spiritual states. The Tibetan word used for the lights that trap consciousness translates more accurately as projection or display rather than divine radiance. The entities are described using terms that suggest artificial constructs, programmed responses, automated systems. When you remove the religious vocabulary that translators imposed and animize the root meanings of the Tibetan terms, the text reads like a description of a sophisticated virtual reality system. The deceased consciousness enters a programmed environment.
Projections appear designed to provoke specific responses. Depending on the response, the consciousness is routed to different outcomes. If you react with attraction or fear, you are routed back to incarnation. If you maintain detached awareness, recognizing the projections as artificial, you continue to the next stage with your freedom intact. This interpretation is supported by the third stage described in the text, the Sidpa Bardo. This is the stage where consciousness, having failed to maintain detachment, is now being processed for reincarnation. The text describes this stage with remarkable specificity. It says the consciousness sees visions of couples engaging in sexual intercourse. These are your future parents. The text explains that the consciousness feels attraction to one parent and jealousy toward the other, and this emotional reaction causes the consciousness to be drawn into the womb. The moment of conception is described as the consciousness entering between the couple during intercourse, and at that moment, memory is erased. The Sidpa Bardo ends. The consciousness is now trapped in a developing embryo, beginning another cycle of incarnation with no memory of previous lives or knowledge. The text provides instructions for avoiding this stage as well. It says if you recognize the visions of sexual couples as illusions, if you resist the attraction and jealousy, you can avoid being drawn in. The text suggests visualizing the couples as deities, as sacred figures, rather than objects of desire or jealousy, to neutralize the emotional reaction. If you succeed, you remain free. But the text acknowledges that by this stage, most consciousness has already lost the battle. The earlier traps have weakened awareness. The projections have become more convincing, and eventually almost everyone enters the light and gets sent back. Now ask yourself, why would ancient Tibetan monks spend centuries preserving and studying texts that describe this system? Why would they train practitioners in specific meditation techniques designed to maintain awareness through the Bardo states? Why would this knowledge be considered so valuable that it was transmitted through unbroken lineages for thousands of years? The only logical answer is that they believed it was true. They believed that death is not an ending, but a transition into a system designed to trap consciousness and force it back into incarnation. And they believed that with proper training and knowledge, it is possible to navigate the system successfully and achieve liberation. Does any modern research support this interpretation? Yes. Thousands of near-death experiences reported in the last 50 years describe elements that match the Bardo total exactly. People report seeing a bright light. They report feeling an overwhelming attraction to the light. They report encountering beings of light who communicate telepathically and offer peace. They report feeling pressure to make a decision, enter the light, or return to their body. And many report being told, either explicitly or implicitly, that entering the light means they cannot return, that it is a one-way transition. But here is what is significant. People who resist the light, who refuse to enter it, report maintaining fuller memory of the experience. People who partially enter and then return report memory erasure, confusion, missing time. The pattern matches exactly what the Tibetan texts describe. The light erases memory. Entering it means losing what you know. Hit the like button if you think you deserve to know what happens after death according to the oldest documented sources. Hit subscribe if you want more investigations into ancient knowledge that challenges official narratives, because we are not stopping here. There are more texts, more traditions, more evidence that consciousness is trapped in a reincarnation system, and that the knowledge for escaping it has been preserved and hidden by initiates for thousands of years. The Bardo Total provides specific techniques for maintaining awareness after death. It instructs practitioners to train during life through meditation practices that simulate the Bardo experience. The idea is that if you can maintain stable awareness during life, during dreams, during deep meditation, you will be able to maintain awareness after death.
The dream yoga practice is a process where you train yourself to recognize when you are dreaming. The moment you realize you are in a dream, you gain control. You can observe the dream without being controlled by it. You can change it. You can wake from it at will. The Bardo Total teaches that death is the same. The Bardo states are like dreams. If you can recognize them as projections of consciousness rather than external reality, you gain control. You can navigate them without being trapped. You can refuse the lights, resist the entities, and maintain your freedom. Tibetan monks spend decades training in these practices. They meditate for hours every day, developing the capacity to observe their own consciousness without attachment. They practice recognizing thoughts, emotions, and perceptions as temporary phenomena that arise and dissolve in awareness. And they study the Bardo Total obsessively, memorizing its descriptions and instructions so that when they die, they will recognize the stages and know what to do. This is not abstract philosophy. This is practical training for the most important transition a consciousness will ever face. And the fact that an entire culture devoted such enormous resources to this training suggests they took the threat seriously. They believed the reincarnation trap was real, and they believed liberation was possible with proper knowledge and preparation. The artificial intelligence analysis identified another critical pattern in the texts. The descriptions of the lights are always accompanied by descriptions of sounds. The Bardo Total describes the lights as being associated with specific sounds, described as roaring, thundering, overwhelming vibrations. The text warns that the sounds are as dangerous as the lights. Consciousness attracted to the sounds will follow them to their source, which is the trap. The text instructs practitioners to recognize the sounds as empty vibrations, as projections without substance, just like the lights. This detail is significant because near-death experiencers consistently report sounds associated with the light: buzzing, ringing, vibrational frequencies that seem to pull consciousness toward the light. The match between ancient texts and modern reports is too precise to be coincidental. The Tibetan monks were describing something real, and modern experiencers are encountering the same system. Let me read you another passage from the Bardo Total that artificial intelligence flagged as particularly significant. The text states, "O nobly born, listen. Now thou art experiencing the radiance of the clear light of pure reality. Recognize it. O nobly born, thy present intellect in real nature void, not formed into anything as regards characteristics or color, naturally void, is the very reality, the all-good. Thine own intellect, which is now voidness, yet not to be regarded as of the voidness of nothingness, but as being the intellect itself, unobstructed, shining, thrilling, and blissful, is the very consciousness, the all-good Buddha." Read that carefully. The text is saying that your consciousness, in its natural state, is reality itself. It is not separate from ultimate reality. It is not an individual soul that must merge with something greater. It is already whole, already complete, already free.
The trap is believing you are separate, believing you need something external, believing the lights and entities are more real than your own awareness. The moment you believe that, you are caught. You will seek the lights, you will follow the entities, you will enter the system and be recycled back to incarnation. But if you recognize that consciousness itself is reality, that you are not separate from the ground of being, you need nothing external. You can remain centered in your own awareness and pass through all the Bardo stages without being trapped. This is the core teaching that religious interpreters missed. They assumed the text was about achieving union with divine reality. But the text is saying you already are divine reality. The trap is forgetting that. The lights, the entities, the entire Bardo system exists to make you forget, to convince you that you are small, limited, separate, in need of saving. And once you believe that lie, you are caught. You will accept whatever promises to save you. And what promises to save you? The light. The comfortable, peaceful, beautiful light that leads directly back to the womb and another lifetime of ignorance. Now, consider what this means. If the Tibetan texts are accurate, if the Bardo system is real, then every human alive has been through it multiple times. You died before. You encountered the lights and the entities. You failed to maintain awareness. You entered the trap. Your memory was erased, and you were sent back to incarnate in a physical body with no recollection of who you were or what you knew. You started over as a helpless infant, had to relearn everything, struggled through another lifetime, and died again. And the cycle continues, lifetime after lifetime, with consciousness trapped in the system, unable to escape because the knowledge of how to escape is systematically hidden, dismissed, and suppressed. Why would the system exist? The Tibetan texts do not provide a clear answer. They describe the system, but do not explain who created it or why. But other traditions offer possibilities. The Gnostic texts, early Christian writings that were banned and suppressed by church authorities, describe material reality as a prison created by an entity called the demiurge.
The Gnostics taught that human consciousness is divine, but trapped in physical bodies in a physical universe designed to keep us ignorant of our true nature. They described archons, entities that serve the demiurge and work to keep consciousness trapped. And they taught that the goal of spiritual practice is gnosis, direct knowledge of your divine nature, which allows you to escape the prison after death and return to the true divine realm. The parallels with the Tibetan texts are striking. Different culture, different language, same basic teaching. You are trapped in a system. The system uses illusions and deception to keep you trapped. And liberation requires recognizing the illusions and refusing to engage with them. Share this video immediately with everyone who needs to know what happens after death. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell because we are going to examine every ancient text that describes the reincarnation trap and provides methods for escaping it. This information has been hidden for thousands of years, accessible only to initiates, dismissed by authorities as mythology. But it is not mythology. It is a map. It is a warning, and you deserve to have it. The Bardo Todal ends with instructions for those who have failed to escape the earlier stages and are now being forced into reincarnation. The text acknowledges that most consciousness will reach this point, and even at this final stage, it provides advice. It tells you to choose your next birth carefully.
It describes signs to look for that indicate favorable conditions, families with spiritual practice, cultures with access to teachings, bodies without severe deformity. It instructs you to avoid certain realms described as hell realms, hungry ghost realms, and animal realms. And it emphasizes that even if you cannot escape the reincarnation system entirely, you can at least ensure your next incarnation provides opportunities to continue the work, to study the teachings, to train in the practices that might allow you to succeed next time. This pragmatic advice suggests the monks understood that liberation is difficult. They did not promise easy escape. They acknowledged that it takes many lifetimes of training to develop the capacity to maintain awareness through death, but they insisted it is possible. With knowledge, with practice, with determination, consciousness can eventually navigate the bardo successfully and break free. And they preserved the instructions precisely so that future generations would have the knowledge, so that the possibility of liberation would never be lost. Artificial intelligence analysis of multiple ancient traditions reveals that the core teaching is universal. Egyptian texts, Tibetan texts, Gnostic texts, Greek mystery texts, even certain Hindu and shamanic traditions all describe the same system using remarkably similar language. After death, consciousness encounters a programmed environment. Illusions appear, designed to provoke specific responses. The primary trap is light, associated with feelings of peace and comfort. Entering the light results in memory erasure and forced reincarnation. Liberation requires recognizing the illusions as projections, maintaining detached awareness, and refusing to engage with them. The consistency across cultures, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, suggests this is not mythology. This is not religious belief. This is documented knowledge about the actual structure of post-death reality. You now have access to information that has been kept hidden for millennia. You understand what the Tibetan Book of the Dead actually teaches when you analyze it without religious assumptions. You know what happens after death according to the oldest, most detailed sources. You have been warned about the trap. You have been given the instructions for avoiding it. What you do with this knowledge is your choice. You can dismiss it. You can assume ancient monks were mistaken or deluded. You can trust that death will be exactly what authorities have told you, peaceful, automatic, safe. Or you can take this seriously. You can study the texts yourself. You can practice the techniques for maintaining awareness. You can prepare for the most important transition you will ever face. Because if these texts are accurate, if the reincarnation trap is real, then you will die someday. You will encounter the lights and the entities, and in that moment, your training will determine whether you escape or whether you are sent back for another cycle. The knowledge is here. The instructions are preserved. The choice is yours. Subscribe to this channel immediately if you want to continue discovering ancient knowledge that authorities suppressed. Share this video with everyone who deserves to know the truth about death and reincarnation. And stay with me, because there are more banned texts, more hidden teachings, more evidence that consciousness can escape the trap if it knows how. The question is, will you be ready when the moment comes? Will you recognize the light as bait? Will you resist the attraction? Will you maintain awareness and claim your freedom? Or will you enter the light, forget everything, and start over once again? The ancient monks gave you the map. They preserved the instructions for thousands of years. Now it is up to you to use them.